Good morning. It is Thursday, January 16th. I'm in travel mode.
You're somewhere.
Paul's not here. Michael's right there. Over here, we're talking about Gary Gilchrist, Rivian, and Baristas. Baristas? Baristas? Cirillo, let's see. You're the most consistent person on the Automotive Troublemaker this week.
Oh, wow. I feel honored and very consistent.
There, I feel consistent.
Where are you?
I'm actually in your home country.
No.
Toronto, Canada.
No.
Yes.
Okay.
I know, it's so sad.
We gotta rip the hard T out of there. You gotta say Toronto.
Toronto, Canada.
There you go.
A. It just gets you an A and everything sounds right. Exactly. Oh man. Yeah, no, I'm having a lot of fun. It's snowing here. Which I guess it's probably more of a typical thing that you get up here than I get in Nashville. But I am still I'm getting overexcited. I was talking to someone on the phone this morning already about NADA being only a week away at this point. This time next week, we'll be at the JD Power event and hanging out, running around, getting to see people, hugging necks, doing some man on the street type interviews. You're going to be holding a mic. Paul and I will be holding mics, and we're just going to be talking to everybody that we possibly can down there. One thing you can look out for is on NADAparties.com. We were still adding parties to that list as of yesterday. So, if you want to know or want to figure out what you're doing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever day that you're there, and it's not being at the expo floor, head to NADAparties.com. You can find that out. Plus, our wait list is still building. We may even be letting people in at the door on like that one in, one out type vibe, a little Miami for you. So make sure you're on the wait list, because wait list people will get prioritized if you want to get into our party on Friday night. It's a 2-hour happy hour. You're going to want to be there. Let's go.
It's going to be a blast.
It will be a blast. Let's get into it. Yesterday, you and Paul covered the incoming NADA Chairman Tom Castriota's priorities for 2025. But Auto News did an interview with 2024 Chairman Gary Gilchrist on a little bit about what his encouragement is to the industry as he's leaving the office of Chairman of NADA. Mainly focusing on the importance of strong dealer advocacy in Washington, and continued his defense of the franchise system, obviously, amidst still pressing direct sales and regulatory changes. Here's a couple quotes, and we'll point to a couple and then just kind of chat through them and maybe pin them against what you all talked about with Tom Castriota yesterday. But on EV adoption, he said, NADA is always in favor of having the customer make the choices, be it either ICE, plug-in hybrids, hydrogen, gas. Dealers have spent millions of dollars in our facilities to make these transformations, but it's the consumer choice, and the consumers are not adopting it. We're at 7.8% nationally for fleet adoption, so we've got a ways to go. So still consumer choice winning in NADA's eye and the dealer's eye, which is who Tom and Gary are meant to represent.
I don't envy them.
It's a hefty hill to climb for sure.
Yeah, when you say all of our favorite word, regulation, we're like, yeah.
Oh, it's a mess. And then here's a couple things with just some things that NADA is challenging and being on the tip of the spear on: the CARS rule, the tax credit, the Scout Motors and Amazon Hyundai partnerships, all of which he's saying we've challenged. We're waiting for rulings. We're challenging them nationwide, working with the ATAs, the local associations, to challenge them in the right way, make sure that all of these new changes are meeting the franchise laws. And that's the argument to hey, continue to stay involved at the dealer level with your local representative, with your ATAs in the conversation, so that we don't lose a seat in the conversation over the next year.
Yeah, he's got a quote about the tax credit, which I think is so fitting. I had a conversation this week with Elena Ciccatelli, which is going to air next week while we're all at NADA. Awesome. But here's what he says, because I think it's fitting to that conversation. He says, we need that 7,500 tax credit right now. as we cut the line down on EV inventory. And this is something we're thinking about constantly, especially with the impending entrance potentially of 30 plus Chinese EV automakers and the implications of a 29,000, even with tariffs, like a $40,000 luxury SUV or, EV blows my mind. So I love that they're thinking about it. They're urging the government to say, hey, we still need affordability on these things. And if I'm reading between the lines, almost this open conversation as well with American OEMs saying, you also need to figure out a way to make these things as affordable as possible.
Yeah, and actually get the inventory in line, from a sales pace, from a demand pace, get the pricing right, get the rebates right from a manufacturer level, and then obviously the government level comes on the side. So I think, obviously a bit of a walk around all of the issues at hand, but the main things continuing to defend the franchise system, strengthen the relationships with the ATAEs, and then monitoring that government overreach into the franchise system.
Well, that's the outgoing.
There you go.
Yesterday we talked about the incoming. Tom Castriota, who has this beefy picture holding an M16 on the roof of a something with this combat helicopter. Like, I don't know if it can get any bad to the bone than that. Let me ask you though, what are some of the things you're hoping to see from the incoming chairman?
Well, for me, I think what I would encourage NADA and dealers is to also rely on the voice of the customer, similar to what the regulators are looking to do, right? They're seeking public comments, like getting the actual voice of the consumer. And I think the dealers are the closest to the consumer. And so getting that raw, real feedback, telling the stories of the way that the consumer is actually interacting with you, highlighting those stories, getting the customer to highlight the stories with you of what they need, why they want it, how they're adopting these things. Like, don't fight just regulation or the way it's always been with, this is the way that that the regulators are kind of, saying like, well, the consumer feels this way. That battle's always going to lose. So that's why I would encourage us as an industry to get closer to the consumer and make sure the consumer conversation that highlights the good in the system is front and center.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Speaking of being front and center.
Stop.
Segue.
Got it.
A little MC help on the front end, but we got it.
There you go. On the electric van market belongs to Rivian, as Ford has been unseated by Rivian's electric delivery van. Despite facing manufacturing hurdles and supply shortages, Rivian's partnership with Amazon and expansion into new fleets helped drive record-breaking sales. Rivian delivered 13,423 electric vans in 2024, a 67% increase from 2023, outpacing the e-transit sales of just over 12,000. So Rivian getting in that game with Amazon. Their Q4 performance was up to 4,397 units, which was up a staggering 84% year over year. Rivian's Normal, Illinois plant underwent upgrades in April to improve cost efficiency, but also faced temporary shutdowns in the summer due to parts shortages. Obviously, Amazon remains a key customer of theirs, committing to up to 100,000 EDVs. But Rivian is also testing its commercial van with DHL and other logistics companies. So they're winning in the fleet management business with logistics companies with that EDV.
Think of this. Just makes you think of how many dimensions there are to the auto industry. Mm-hmm. Like I remember one time where I used to live, there was this big house, on a beautiful estate, and you always wonder who lives in that thing. And what I find out is that this guy's company provided the latex that those like the gardening gloves, that have the latex.
Yeah.
He didn't even create the gloves. He just supplied the latex. And that's what while you were reading this story, that's what this made me think of. I'm like, people are going to sit here and go Rivian this and that. I'm like, dude, Rivian's got a locked in deal with Amazon.
That's it, man. Like that, they're going to be, I think they're going to be fine. And you see them driving around, you start to see, and this is where I think like EV adoption is going to become more familiar, right? You got 100,000 of these Amazon workers driving an EV for work every day. understanding like how that feels, what it's like to drive that truck. And now that's a consumer, right? And so they get more used to the opportunity of adoption on the consumer side of the vehicle. And imagine Rivian just like retargeting all of those Amazon employees that are driving those things every day. Like, hey, look, you can drive the same thing. So I think, and Ford has done a great job at this over their history of getting into the fleet business and fleet trucks, then driving people to buy their F-150s from Ford as well. So
this is where, like, if I were a dealer, I would lean into the other delivery drivers for Amazon, because I see them all over the place. I see the vans,
right?
But I still see other people driving their car, and I'm like, put them in an EV and be like, hey, maintain brand presence with the Amazon thing, but like get an EV you want to drive. Maybe it's an Ioniq, maybe it's a Tesla, maybe it's a Kia EV 9 or 7 or whatever. But get into an EV. There's a whole fleet of delivery drivers in that ecosystem that don't get to drive the Rivian van.
Yep, exactly. Speaking of an ecosystem.
Segue.
Why are you so good at it?
Ever since Starbucks Workers United, the Starbucks union that was started in Boston, it has grown to 11,000 baristas nationwide now and is pushing for clarity and bargaining over something we talked about just last week, Starbucks' new code of conduct that is coming out. The revised policy ends the company's open door policy, specifically sparking concerns over enforcement and its impact on customers. Basically, the policy is meant to end access to store spaces and restrooms without actually buying a coffee or something in the store, shifting enforcement responsibilities to baristas. The workers' union is demanding negotiations over how baristas are expected to enforce the policy and how it will impact their daily responsibilities. And Starbucks is claiming the code of conduct already addresses workers' concerns and highlights that the union and company have agreed on hundreds of topics in bargaining. The union represents 525 stores right now, and obviously has a history of protesting pay and working conditions, striking on some of the key days for Starbucks. This is an interesting one for me. Just my commentary on this is, one, anytime you're doing anything sweeping across a company, I think it is good to talk to the frontline workers. Like, hey, how do you feel about this sweeping change and how's it going to impact your day? I can definitely see how, oh, no, you can't go in there. You can't do that. Did you buy something first? Presents like a definite point of conflict potentially for baristas who are also trying to make drinks faster than they ever have, according to the new training policies. But I was excited about the change, but I can see how, like, when you talk to the actual people that have to make this happen every day, it can become a rub.
I just think, like, how long has this conversation been happening with no action on Starbucks' part that it had to escalate to this point? There was a frontline manager somewhere that was getting this complaint consistently. And how long did they wait before they floated it up the chain? And how long did that person wait? And how long and how long and how long? And so there's an organizational, cultural leadership lesson in stories like this, which is, so how about you listen to your people?
Yep.
Because like I can guarantee you, okay, maybe I can't guarantee you, but for lack of better words, I can guarantee you that somewhere up the chain at the executive level is going like, calm down, they're just baristas. Like, they should be grateful for the work that they get, which is so in a 2025 employee ecosystem. So
yeah, I mean, just remembering today, and especially like we're in January, there's a lot of opportunity for reset. Like when you're making, vision casting statements or like what we're going to do this year, has that been, well vetted through the organization, at least the points that impact the people that are doing the work on a daily basis, and can they actually get those things done? Does it make sense for their daily workload or their path of their process, and all those things? So I think, like, just listen to your people,
just
cue the music, yo. I got no trigger button. There it comes. Hey, Michael, thanks for joining us today. Hey, we talked about listening to your people. That's the big encouragement. Like, love people more than you love cars is not just about the consumers or community, about your team.